Hi everyone, my name is Maddie, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where I'm going to be giving you a kind of survival guide and book recommendations for a short readathon. So when I say a short readathon, I'm kind of meaning the 24 to 48 hour type kind of readathon. I am also going to have videos coming out over the next month or two, which are for a mid-length readathon, so like a week to 2 weeks, and also survival tips for a long readathon, like a month-long one. That will be coming out around the time that I announce my month-long readathon that is happening in June. But I thought the short readathon survival tips would be really useful right now because this weekend is Becca's BOOKOPLATHON, which is a 48-hour readathon, and then in about 2 or 3 weeks is RAEDATHON on the 3rd of April, which is Jade from JD Ray Reads 24-hour readathon she hosts every so often. So we have a 48-hour and a 24-hour readathon coming up really soon. So I thought some tips and tricks and just some things to think about, as well as an absolute ton of book recommendations, might be useful. So I am going to start off with like the tips and tricks, and I will say now, this is from my perspective, kind of things I think about when I'm taking part in a readathon, things that might help you guys. If you do these readathons in a completely different way, because I think a lot of people do them very differently to me, that's fine. Do it your way, do it however you want to have the most fun with it. But these are just some top tips from kind of my perspective, having done these quite a few times. So we're going to go through that first, and then I'll have it chaptered so you can skip to if you want, but then I'm going to have the book recommendations. And I'll say now for the recommendations, they are kind of recommendations for specific books, but I haven't actually read all the ones I'll be holding up. It's also just like types of books that could work well and a possible way to structure this kind of really short, intense readathon that might work for you as well as it works for me. So, tips and tricks. I think the first thing I will say, and this is a very general point, but I think it's really, really important to remember, and an important thing to think about even more than remember, I would say, is assess why you want to do the readathon. This may sound weird, but like pick a goal. If your goal is to read 5 books, plan accordingly to read 5 books. Think about how many hours that's going to take you, how long you have, all of this. If your goal is to finish off the book you're currently reading, awesome, plan accordingly. If your goal is just to have fun and take part in something in the community, plan accordingly. That could mean you read loads or don't read anything and you just like watch live sprints that are happening. It doesn't matter. But just really keep in mind what your goal is and plan accordingly. Don't go into it thinking you want to have fun and then feel bad at the end because you only read 1 book. If your goal was to have fun and you had fun, well done. Don't get caught up in other people having different goals, I think is the thing. Like, for example, BOOKOPLATHON this weekend, there's 8 prompts, loads of people are going for 8 books. I'm very hesitantly aiming for 4, but not even really that, because I just want to enjoy it. It's just a big laugh. I have so much that needs doing this weekend. I know I can't commit to reading solidly and staying up all night and all of this. So I'm just going in for fun and I'll see what I get out of it, hopefully quite a bit of reading. But I think that's the really important key thing, is know what you want to get out of it and then focus on that. So as I said, if your goal is fun, have fun. If your goal is tons of reading, set yourself up to be able to read lots. But if you don't hit your goal, don't feel bad. All of us know that reading slumps happen, and some days you just don't feel like reading and you cannot predict that. So if that day happens to fall on a readathon day, it's a shame, but it doesn't matter. Do it the next day, do it in a week. Like, there is no pressure in any of these things. It's just a laugh, and just never get yourself down about something you can't really control. It's a difficult thing, reading. It requires a lot of brain power and a lot of time and focus. Not everyone has that every day, so just don't get down on yourself if one of the days you don't happens to be the day you wanted to read 8 books, because sometimes it happens. So with that very kind of general point out of the way, here are kind of my top tips for a readathon, and I apologise, this isn't that structured. As all of my videos, I just talk to a camera till I have nothing else to say, so that's the route we're going down with this one as well. First thing, most important thing, if you need to sleep, sleep. This is different for everyone. Some people stay up the full, say 24 hours or even 48. Some people get like a full night's sleep and then just read when they would normally be awake. Some people have a bit less sleep than normal, so they're awake for a bit more. Some people, like myself, I'm very, very good at napping, so I will like stay awake for as long as I can, then when I'm too tired to read, I'll nap for like 2 hours and then carry on. At least one of those naps each readathon turns into a full 6 hours sleep, but we're going to ignore that. So I think this is the thing. Do not feel you have to be awake for the whole thing. If you want to be awake for the whole thing, amazing. Go for it. Have your fun. Don't feel like you need to. A lot of us can't. If I was awake for 24 hours, I would not be reading. I did it last September? Maybe? I don't know when it was. A while ago. Could have been November. I'm not sure. A while ago, I helped host a weekend 24-hour readathon for a previous month-long BOOKOPLATHON. And so I was hosting the 24, so I had to stay awake for the whole 24. I read a whole book in the first half of the day, didn't read a page in the second half, I was too tired. So just do what you need to do, no one minds, it's just fun. So I think that's my most important tip, sleep. If you need to sleep, sleep. Please, just please, I worry about all of you who stay awake for all this time and then feel dead the next day. Like, please, if you need to sleep and want to sleep, sleep. That's the first thing. Get that out of the way. No guilt, self-care. Second thing is, other than the kind of goal thing I've already said, like fun or reading lots, I would say set yourself kind of levels of goals, like the things you really think you can achieve and want to achieve, and then also like stretch goals, because this is coming from someone who's very, very goal-oriented, I will admit, and goal-driven, but don't just set the stretch goal. That's what I would say. Don't say, I'm going to read 8 books if you're someone that normally reads like 2 books a week like me, because however much you might want to do that, you have to accept the reality that however hard you try, that may well not happen, and then you might feel like you've not reached your goal. So like for me, for BOOKOPLATHON, I'm kind of saying, as long as I finish my current read and maybe read one other book, I'm happy, but I would like to do 4 books in the weekend. And I feel framing it like that makes the unsuccessful feel less bad if you don't reach it. Again, you don't have to do this. If you just want to be crazy ambitious and do your best, go for it. But having those level of goals where you're like, I know I'd be happy if I reach this point, but I really want to get to here, it can just help like level your expectations and make it a bit less stressful throughout the weekend. And also if you hit that first goal like really early on in the weekend or the day, you can instantly be like, oh my God, I've got this. I'm sorted, I'm having a great time. And it gives you like extra motivation to carry on. But I also feel like if you've only got one goal and you hit that early on, it's often hard to keep yourself motivated. Whereas if you've got another goal to reach for, it kind of keeps you going and amps you up. So that would be my tip, but don't set like too impossible a goal so that you get down on yourself when you're not reaching it. I think the thing as well to remember is a lot of us perform well under pressure and are very good procrastinators. So if you set yourself the goal of 4 books in a, say, 2-day readathon and you've read 1 book in the first day, you might be thinking, I'm never gonna make it. Lots of us do well when we have a deadline. So like last week, I was meant to be reading 8 books in the week. I read, how many? 5 in 6 days, and then read 3 in 1 day because I knew I needed to get it done by that date. So kind of trust yourself, know what you're like. If you're someone who has in the past read a lot in like 1 day really quickly and you're behind, trust yourself. You'll catch up. If you don't, it doesn't matter, but like you can do it. You know you can. Don't give up too early, I guess I would say. So to summarize that ramble, easily achievable goals, stretch goals, don't get down on yourself if you don't make them, but also don't give up too early if you're struggling. Because again, even if you finish 1 book the first day and you're like, how am I gonna get to 4? If you just keep trying, you may not get to 4, but you might get to 3, which is probably more than you would have done if you'd just given up. Just saying. Next tip, and another extremely important one, food. Now, my top tip for food is going to be very, very different to most people's. I am sure most people would say, get some healthy food in, get food that's gonna fuel you. Mine is that, but in a different way. Get food that is going to fuel you emotionally and mentally. This sounds weird, and I know there's lots of like things to do with emotional eating and stuff, but personally, I really, really enjoy sweets. I really, really enjoy like pizza and easy food. I also am a bit of a picky eater, which I'm not going to talk about in this video, but may talk about at some point. It's a whole thing. Therefore, if I'm doing like a big weekend, I want food that makes me happy. And for me, that's sugar. I absolutely like, I'm gonna go grab what I've bought as provisions for BOOKOPLATHON this weekend. So there is this UK-based company called SWEETZY who do pick and mix. This is one bag I've got, which is just full of alphabet letters. And then I also, if I can just grab it, bought a bag last week, which I've eaten most of, which was like general fizzy pick and mix and stuff. You choose what you want in this. It's just a great UK-based company. I'll link them down below. It's brilliant. I have an affiliate link in the works. I've not got it yet, but there might be one in the description by the time you're seeing this. I'm not sure. If not, I'll add it when it appears. But this is a pick and mix company, and they're really like nice, small company. They plant a tree for every bag of pick and mix you buy. And depending on what bag size you buy, you like choose different amounts. So like this had 12 scoops in it. So I just chose 12 scoops of alphabet letters. But you can choose like a different thing for each scoop. And they have a brilliant selection. And I've heard people saying as well for gluten-free and vegan, they've got really good selections. That's the quick pitch for SWEETZY. But anyway, sweets make me really happy and sugar gives me energy. I've never found that caffeine gives me energy. Sugar certainly does. So my survival is eating a crap ton of sweets all weekend. And I don't feel bad about it. It's 2 days. It's not gonna do that much harm. So that would be my thing. If you're like me and you like trash food, like garlic bread and pizza and sugar, eat garlic bread and pizza and sugar all weekend. Like, it's one weekend, it's a bit of fun. Your focus shouldn't be on something else. But if your love for food is really decadent meals and that was what like gives you energy both physically and mentally, like makes you happy and makes you just feel good, do that. I think that's what's important of remembering it's different for everyone. I see a lot of people thinking like, oh, I need to fuel myself, I need to do this, and so they try and eat super healthy. But if that's going to be a stressor for you and actually take away from your enjoyment, just eat whatever the hell you want. Like, the mental fuel it's going to give you from generally feeling good and happy, I think will carry you a lot further over something such short term as 2 days than like the actual like nutrients and energy you get from healthy food, would be my take on it. If you're doing a much longer span something, then obviously you don't want to just eat junk the whole time, coming from someone who does eat junk the whole time. But, you know, it's 2 days. Eat what makes you mentally happy, gives you that like endorphin boost so you feel good, and then you'll do well. That would be my probably slightly taboo tip on food for readathons, is eat like crap if you want to. There you go. You have free license now to do it because I've told you to. Right, I have one more general tip and then one slightly bookish tip, which will lead very nicely into the book recommendations. So the one slightly more general tip, take breaks. Almost everyone cannot focus for 24 or 48 hours solid, or even say like the 12 hours you're awake or whatever. Barely anyone can focus for that long. But if you spend an hour reading and that's the end of your focus, and then you spend an hour or two trying to keep reading, you will get less done than if you spent half an hour dancing to some music you like or going on Twitter and then going back to reading. That is just the reality of how human brains work. I mean, studies have shown many a time that most people can't focus solidly for more than about 20 minutes at a time. And a lot of people with reading can focus longer than that. I know I certainly can read quite easily for about an hour. Longer than that, unless it's a very, very good book, I do start to zone out. So I've got like a playlist of good music, which I will blast through the sound system in my flat, and I will get up and like dance once an hour and do that to break it up. Or I have videos that need filming, I have Instagram posts that need taking, and some of those are big activities. So like this weekend I'm going to film Dart Attack, which takes like an hour and a half. But I'll do it. At some point in the weekend, I will break up my weekend and do that, because personally I can't read for 12 hours, not even close. I need the breaks. So that would be my tip, is don't be afraid to take breaks. Don't feel like you're wasting the time by not reading, because you are probably making the time you spend reading so much more productive that you'll get through it. But this also applies to changing formats. I, as of this week, have listened to my second ever audiobook and my first ever fiction audiobook. And am I going to be using audiobooks this weekend? Almost certainly not. They're definitely not really my thing still, though I'm getting into it gradually. But if you're someone that likes audiobooks, if you're struggling staring at a page, go lie on the floor for 20 minutes and listen to an audiobook. Switch it up. Yes, your brain is taking in the information still, but it will fire different parts of your brain and it will get you either physically moving or just moving to a different position, whatever. Do what you feel you need to do, but I would highly encourage taking breaks and realizing and kind of trying to be aware of when you're doing something futile. So when you're staring at the same page for 20 minutes, take that break instead of trying to push on. And for some people, pushing through may just be best. But I think a lot of us are too scared to take that step back and take the break because we feel like we're going to waste the time, whereas you'll probably actually gain more if you just take the break. So then, similar to what I just said with the changing format thing, we're gonna kind of start getting into the book recommendations. And I cannot tell you, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 piles of books at my feet to kind of talk through. And one of the key things that's coming from that is I have grouped these books by different types of book. Not necessarily genre, kind of genre, but different types. And that would be my big tip. Mix it up. But also you don't have to. If you're someone that only reads fantasy, just read fantasy. But for me, mixing it up makes all the difference. If I am just reading fantasy after fantasy after fantasy, I will slow down. If I switch it up to a different genre or a different format or something, it helps me so much. But what I would actually say on that is pick a core book. A lot of people in readathons read short books or quick books, and a lot of these recommendations are going to be exactly that because you don't have that much time. But I say pick one core central book, which is just a book you really want to read, that's like probably longer than it should be for a readathon. It doesn't have to be chunky, it doesn't have to be dense, it doesn't have to be any of those things. If the book you really want to read is a 200-page novella, go for it. But if you have something chunkier, I would say pick that one when you've got steam at the beginning or in the middle or whenever, get through it. Because I sometimes find, and this is completely a personal thing, a lot of people may not agree with this, but I do personally find that if I'm only reading short things for the sake of getting through them, not because I enjoy them or like really am dying to read them, I sometimes feel quite dissatisfied. And so I feel like a good way for me to negate that is to pick one book that, irrelevant of size, irrelevant of anything, it's just a book I really want to read, pick that one up. That's where I'm going to start. That's what I'm doing for BOOKOPLATHON. I have it here. I have From Blood and Ash. I've actually started it because with BOOKOPLATHON you're allowed to start books beforehand, and this is 600 pages, which is a bit much even for this logic. So I'm going to get like halfway through before the readathon starts. But this is my one chunky, really anticipated read that when I finish it, I will get such a huge sense of accomplishment that hopefully it will spur me on to keep going for the rest of the readathon. So that would be my tip. Pick a central book. Another one I considered was Truthwitch. Another one I considered, which I've left on my bookshelf, was A Dark and Hollow Star. Just pick one central book which you really want to get to, and then do whatever else you can. This isn't for everyone. Some people just want to read graphic novels all weekend, and that is fantastic. But I personally feel like I need one satisfying chunky read. Not even chunky as in like big, it could be 350 pages or something. But like meaty read, I need one of those so I don't feel dissatisfied. And I'm saying this having read 8 novellas last week, which kept me completely satisfied. So it's not always like avoiding short books or avoiding quick books. But just keep that in mind when you're making your selections. And this also leads me on, final thing before we get into the book recommendations, into prompts. A lot of these readathons have prompts. BOOKOPLATHON very much has prompts. Readathon doesn't, but lots do, lots don't, they vary. I would say if you want to do the prompts, do the prompts. If you just want to use the time when everyone's reading together to just read whatever you like, no one will know. You don't have to do the prompts. I personally love doing the prompts. I mean, I literally created a game to pick my books for me each month because I'm that indecisive. So prompts are brilliant for me. However, that's because this BOOKOPLATHON is landing when I've pretty much already finished my TBR for the month, other than one book, which I know I can fit in after. So I'm not bothered. I'm like, cool, I'll read whatever fits. Whereas if I was right in the middle of my TBR and not feeling like I was gonna get it finished, I would just read that if I needed to, even if it didn't fit the prompts. So just keep that in mind. Do the prompts if you want the challenge, awesome. Just want to read because everyone's reading, just read. No one will know, and even if they do, no one is gonna care. We all just want to have fun. That's the only aim here. Okay, so talking about lots of different types of books, let's get into all the different types of books I would recommend for a readathon. We're gonna start with the 2 most obvious ones. The first being, literally just grabbing the stack, novellas. So I have a huge stack of them here, and we're going to very briefly go through them in a second. But yes, novellas are a really good thing for readathons. They are normally between 100 to 200 pages, which for most people is maybe 4 to 5 hours of reading at the most. For me, I can get through some novellas in about an hour and a half. It will vary for everyone, but you know, they're pretty quick. So we're going to go through this stack quickly. The first few I'm going to hold up all at once. The first 6, Every Heart a Doorway series by Sean and Maguire. So this is Every Heart a Doorway, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Sky, In an Absent Dream, Come Tumbling Down, and Across Green Grass Fields. These are the first 6 books in the Wayward Children series. I love this series, not everyone does, obviously. I actually last year for a weekend readathon read the first 5. I've just read the 6th one recently because it just came out. So they're a very good way, and this is another thing which I'll kind of come on to later, but I think is worth saying as well. A lot of people pick up standalones in readathons, and that's fine. If you want to pick up standalones, pick up standalones. But I feel like people are scared of series because a series suddenly seems like this huge chunk of reading. I would actually say the opposite. I don't necessarily lean towards doing series in a 24-hour, 48-hour readathon, but I don't lean away from it because I find the slowest part of a book for me is the first section. It's when you need the world building and you need the brain power to understand it and get into the story and learn the characters. If you read a series, that's done for you. And so you need to only put that effort into the first book. All the rest is kind of done. So I would actually suggest series as a good option. Just saying. So then more novellas, which I've read, and then we do have a couple I haven't read yet, but they're novellas. We have Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh, which is a brilliant male kind of gothic fantasy. It's really good. We have Black God's Drums by PJ Lee Clark, which is like a dystopian but set in the past. It's like alternate history, kind of slightly sci-fi story. We have Fireheart Tiger by Aliette de Bodard, which is set in pre-colonial, well, set in a world inspired by pre-colonial Vietnam. Was really interesting. Female-female, romance, tension, good. Next we have The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Guy Vo, which is set in an empire reminiscent of Imperial China. This is kind of like a folklore-y feeling one, very good. We then have All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is a queer-ish kind of sci-fi novella, really good fun, and the start of a series of novellas. So if you want more novellas, that one would work. And then we have The Factory Witches of Lowell by C.S. Mallorik. This was decent, fun, sort of feministy kind of novella. We then have A Taste of Honey by Kaya Shanti Wilson, which I've not read, and Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. Not read either of these, but they both come highly recommended. But the reason I'm only running through them so quick is, especially with Becca's Bookoplathon probably being the day after I put this video up, I'm not expecting people to buy these ones. But this is more of a like types of books to do. So first type, novellas. Next, other very obvious type, graphic novels. So I've got a stack here, which are just the ones I have at my flat. I have a lot of chunkier ones at home, which are like 300, 400, even 500 pages. I've just already read them, so I didn't bring them to the flat. So we have Cody, which is a slightly chunkier one, like a contemporary story. And then we have Sci-Fi, which is Descender. Also for Sci-Fi, we do have Saga. This is volumes 5, 6, and 7. 4, 5, and 6? 4, 5, and 6, because the others are at home, so I've already read them before moving. Also Sci-Fi, we do have Skyward, and then I think for like urban fantasy is Paper Girls. I've not actually read Paper Girls or Skyward yet, but again, they do come extremely highly recommended, and there are 1,000,001 other graphic novel series out there that are contemporary or sci-fi or fantasy or whatever, or chunkier standalone graphic novels. So like the Heartstopper series is great, The Prince and the Dressmaker is great, On a Sunbeam was fantastic. There are so many. Graphic novels are great, and they're quick. And a very different format. I feel like these are really good for getting through when you're finding text difficult, because it tells a story through pictures a lot more, which is sometimes just a nice way to switch up your brain a little bit. Okay, with these like types of books, we're going from most obvious to least obvious. So the next pretty obvious option, which I know a lot of people use, middle grade. So for most adult readers, middle grade reads pretty quickly, but they have some really great, really in-depth stories and really great characters. It's just the writing's a bit simpler because obviously it's aimed at kids, so it's often quite a lot quicker to get through. They often have illustrations. Again, it's just a different way of taking in a story. So the ones I have here are the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. I've read the first 2. Haven't read the 3rd one yet because, as always with series, I'm behind. We then have the Frostheart trilogy. Again, I've read the first one a month or 2 ago. Haven't read the 2nd one yet, but will do later this year. And then we have A Pinch of Magic, which is the start of a trilogy. I've not read this one or the sequels yet, but these are a lot of people's favorites, so they're probably very good. And then finally, Mari and the Night Brothers. This is also the start of a series, I think, but it's just come out, so only the first one's out. And this is actually one I might be reading this weekend for Bookoplathon. So they're just a good option for getting a full length book in that's quite a lot to read, but they're a bit quicker and sometimes a bit easier if your brain's getting a bit tired. Okay, moving on to a slightly less but still pretty obvious stack, we have adult romance. Romance is one of my favorite genres. I don't read it that often, but I love it when I do. and I find them so quick. Almost every book in this stack that I read in a day or maybe 2 days. They're quick. So first off, one of my favorite series of all time, which is just completed, the Brown Sister Trilogy by Talia Hibbert. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Act Your Age, Eve Brown. These are phenomenal romance stories following 3 black women who are sisters, and they each have a different love interest, and it's such a diverse series. There is disability rep, there is different LGBT rep. It's just so good. All the tropes in this, we have enemies to lovers, we have friends to lovers, we have like people who think they hate each other but clearly don't to lovers. It's just so good. It's brilliant. Every single one of these I read each one in a day. So they're definitely quick reads. Next is the Kiss Quotient series, so the Kiss Quotient and the Bride Test. There is a 3rd book in this series coming out very soon called The Heart Principle. Again, pretty diverse. These are written by an Asian American author who has autism, and they have autism wrapped in them with their Asian American characters. Brilliant. We like diverse romance, so highly recommend these. I loved them. Next, the only other one in this stack that I've read. I have so many more at home that I have read, but like in my flat I obviously don't because I didn't bring all the books I've read. Red Wine Royal Blue, very standard recommendation. It's brilliant. It's so good. I've read this multiple times. I've read it in a day both times. I mean, just look at the tabs. Brilliant LGBT romance, enemies / rivals to lovers. It's fantastic. It is quite a lot longer than most, but it still reads really quickly and it's really, really funny. So I'd still recommend it. And then onto ones I haven't read. The first 2 are Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating and Rubies by Christina Lauren. Not read either, but I have read lots of other Christina Lauren. Not lots, a few other Christina Lauren, including The Honeymooners, which was brilliant and I would recommend. But these are meant to be very good and they're romance, so I imagine they're quick. And then for standalones, we had You Have Me at Hola by Alexis Daria, and Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. Not read either of these ones yet. This one is queer. I'm excited for both. This one maybe read this weekend if I can fit it in. But they're romance, they're quick, as always. A couple other off the top of my head, which I don't have here. Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I didn't love it, a lot of people do, so I'd still recommend it. Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Fantastic. Meet Cute Club was another really good short one, and I'm gonna stop there, otherwise I'm gonna be rattling these off for ages. Okay, the next category is not too surprising either, but I still am gonna mention it because I feel like people wouldn't even really consider this as a category. YA contemporary. A lot of us fantasy readers read really chunky books a lot of the time, and they're quite in-depth, there's a lot of world building, so sometimes just dipping into a YA contemporary is the way to go to get through a book quickly. I don't read very many, hence why I only have like 5 in my flat, and 3 of these I've read, but they generally are a pretty quick read. So the ones I've read, first by Jennifer Duggan, we have Hot Dog Girl and Verona comics, both amazing queer YA contemporaries. If you want like characters who aren't necessarily good people, these are books for you. I love reading books, especially contemporary books, where the characters are kind of shitty people and then learn. It's really interesting, it's really fun. Read them. Next is As Far As You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. I just read this one recently. Brilliant YA contemporary, again, queer. I think all of these are queer actually. And this has a big focus on music and also London, which is always a bit of fun. We then have Running with Lions by Julian Winters, which I've not read yet, but is a sports kind of romance, so I've heard very, very good things. And then We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. Very short, but I've heard this one's much sadder. So it depends if that's your vibe for readathon or if you just want to read like happy stuff the whole time. Okay, the next category is one I feel like a lot of people for readathons don't even consider, but I think is really important to remember. Rereads of your favourite books and/or authors. I find it so much easier to get into a book when you've read it before. It like makes all the world building easier, it makes like meeting the characters easier because you're familiar with it, of course. And also you are guaranteed to like these books if it's ones you've read before or an author you've read and loved before. It's just a really good way to do it, to get into it. So I would recommend doing a reread. I'm very tempted to even do it this weekend, or maybe even for Readathon, I don't know, but like rereads are a really good option and I feel like people don't consider it when doing a readathon. And I wouldn't necessarily suggest rereading, you know, a Brandon Sanderson book because they're still huge. But if you want to, then do it. It's often quicker on a reread. So the ones I have, just because I think these would work really well for readathons for me, is I have Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan, because it's a quick one. I have This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet by V. Schwab, so I've got a post note on the front from a signing on that one. It's a really good duology, and I think this would work so well for a readathon doing like one each day. And then I have some TJ Klune books, so we have The Extraordinaries and The House in Cerulean Sea. Both funny, cute, wholesome books that are like a super fast romp. Like this one's like actually fast paced, this one's just quick to get through because it's like, you can't put it down because it's so cute. but they're both brilliant. I know they'd both hold up on reread. They're good options. Obviously those recommendations are much more tailored to me than general, but I feel like that concept of a reread or reading a book by a favourite author, it's often discounted and I don't feel like it should be. And then the final category, and again another one which I feel like people don't consider, is any weird either standalone book or first in a series or continuation of a series, whatever, that's like vaguely short and different from anything else on your TBR. I think that's what's key. So this is the stack I've got. So just quickly to go through them. I have Not Your Sidekick, which is like a sci-fi dystopian superhero book. I have All of My Friends Are Rich, which is like a hard-hitting contemporary, kind of adult contemporary though, new adult maybe. I have Crosshairs, which is like a really modern dystopian story. I have Watch Over Me, which is like a weird book. I don't know in what way, but I know it's weird. And then The Midnight Library, which is like introspective, speculative. So these 5 are just, for me, different to what I normally read. I read a lot of fantasy, I read a lot of romance, I read a lot of contemporary. So I feel like any of these would give me that variety instantly if I felt like I needed to break up what I was reading. So I feel like having a selection of those kind of books at the ready is really good. So if you feel like you're hitting a wall, you can just go, okay, which of these 5 completely different books appeals to me right this moment? Let's read that one. But typical readathon style, I've kept my options pretty short. Okay, so I'm not picking these all up because I've got about 60 books in front of me, if not more. But that's kind of my recommendation. So just to run through them, we have novellas, graphic novels, middle grade, adult romance, YA contemporary, reread author favorites, and weird extra books that's really different. But with the central thing being, pick yourself, I've got them wrong, pick yourself a book which is your focus. And this has worked for me as well for like a 24-hour readathon, where I'll pick like a 700-page book and be like, right, I've been putting it off for ages, I want to get it done, let's do this. And I just do it. And I don't always succeed, but even if I don't succeed, I will likely manage 300 to 400 pages of it, which is so much more than I'd do if I was just trying to read a bit one day. So it can be a good way of kickstarting reading big books. It can be a really good way to get through a ton of small books. Readathons can be whatever you want them to be, but those are my top tips for, I guess, trying to get through a lot, or trying to at least keep yourself going with reading, even if you read really slow and you only get through 2 books all weekend. Hopefully some of these tips will still help you like read consistently and keep going and not hit a wall, if that makes sense. So I've been rambling for almost 40 minutes, so I'm gonna shut up now, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had a good time. Don't forget that both Readathon and BOOKOPLATHON will of course be linked down below if you want to check them out and take part. BOOKOPLATHON is tomorrow when you're watching this, so I would recommend you take part. It's gonna be really good fun. I'm actually helping host part of it. The whole event is live, it's gonna be brilliant. But that's all my tips, that's all I have to share with you. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below. Do you like 24 or 48-hour readathons? Are you looking forward to the rest of these videos with slightly different tips for both mid-length and long readathons? The long one especially is probably gonna be really quite different in terms of what books I'm recommending and like the kind of way I would suggest you structure and schedule it. But you'll see that in a month or 2. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me. Links to all of my social media as well as read-alongs and book clubs that I host are down below in the description if you want to check any of that out, as well as my wishlist and Patreon. But that is it for this video, so bye, and I'll see you in the next one.